Hello Steelers, and welcome to this game of O Group. We're back in with O Group again. I'm trying to play as many games of this as well as possible because A, I enjoy it, and B, it's a new game, so it shows you how to play the thing. But yeah, I mean, I enjoy the game anyway. Really enjoyed the last couple of games I played, and I played one recently set in Malaya, and it got me thinking about refighting the Malayan campaign. It's something I've done in rapid fire many years ago, about 7 years ago, but when my table was a lot more bare. Since then, I managed to actually add a lot more jungle and more scenery to the games, so they look a lot better. So what I've thought of doing is really just refighting the entire Malaya campaign, but using O Group at battalion level. So this is the first of those games. It's going to be it'll be a series of games, but it will be. It's not. I'll keep coming back to it rather than it being a specific thing that happens. It'll just be whenever I fancy playing the next battle in that campaign. But this is the first one. This is the landings at Kota Bharu. This was fought on the 8th of December 1941, and despite the date of it being the 8th of December, it actually, because of the international timelines, it actually happened about an hour before the attack on Pearl Harbor. So these landings were the first Japanese attacks against the Allies, apart from an American airman that had been killed in the days previous. But these were the first actual Japanese aggressive attacks against the Allies, and this was fought. So they landed here at Kota Bharu. They also landed at a place called Patani as well in Thailand. This is on the Malayan coast, the North Malayan coast, and this led through to the main road, which they then followed down and captured Singapore in about 6 weeks. What this is a beach attack, so it's a Japanese amphibious landings. It happened very early in the morning, so the defenders, the Indian defenders on the beaches who were spread out, didn't actually weren't particularly aware of what was going on until it was actually on top of them. The beaches were defended by 3 different battalions of the 18th Infantry Battalion, 18th Indian Infantry Battalion. So we've got, in this particular sector that I'm looking at, it's going to be the Dogra unit that is defending these beaches. And the Japanese, basically, in this scenario, have got to get off the beach and they've got to leave this table end where I'm sat here. And if they can get at least one unit, so even one section off this back end, they will win the game. They're going to do that within 16 turns. That's how I'm setting it. And it's as simple as it is, really. It's going to be a bit of an interesting one, this, because not from what I've seen of other games of O Group, not particularly typical, but still of interest. So, well, we're looking at the table from the Japanese attacking position. So they've got the sea and the beach. The beach is about 12 inches in, so this is actually the attackers' set-up line anyway, pretty much is the line of the beach. And then this leads into a long shoreline, as it was at Kota Bharu. It was a long, shallow shoreline, so it was perfect for invasion. Further north there were pillboxes, but the Indians also had some dug-in defences here and there. I've just put a little building at the back here, just as a scattered, built-up area for the Indians to probably place their HQs and things in. But the rest of it is pretty much jungle with some hills as it leads down to that shoreline. So it's a pretty simple setup. And as I say, all the Japanese are aiming to do is just to get across this table as quick as possible and then get off that table edge. If they do that with any unit, even down to section level, then they have won the game. They will split the Indian Dogra battalion and have completed their landings. So this is the first wave. Happened about 3 o'clock in the morning, thereabouts, I think. Maybe a little bit later, but he was basically at first light. So the Indian defences are probably not as strong as they could have been, even though they had spotted the Japanese landing ships before they were able to get onto the shore. But they just didn't have heavy equipment to deal with them at that point. So this is the Japanese attackers. So it is literally just a battalion of infantry in this one. It's a relatively small game for O Group. So we've got the 3 companies each headed by a company commander, and within each of those is 3 platoons and sections in there. Sorry, when I said sections get off the table, I meant platoons. When the platoons get off the end of the table. They've also got an engineers platoon as well attached with them. That'll just be attached to one of the companies, I'm not sure which one yet. They've also got their spotter as well, so this is their artillery spotter. They've got battalion mortars, which would be on the landing craft, and they've also got, this is their HQ, just so I know where to put my dice when we're on the table. They've also got 3 missions of artillery. These are not really artillery, but they're more like the guns of the ships, the warships that are with the landing force. So this is all they've got, and they've got to really push through and really hammer through into those Indian defences. Let's have a look at what the Indians have got. So this is a Dogra battalion made up of 3 companies, again largely infantry. They have support in the form of 25 pounders. They've got 2 artillery missions because they're defending. They've also got mortars as well. This is their HQ for when it goes on the table. And they've also got a dispatch rider here acting as their forward observation officer. Unfortunately, I don't have enough Indian figures to make up the full 3 companies, something I will do sort out at some point in future. So I've just added some British here, but these could quite easily be Indians wearing helmets anyway. So it doesn't really make much difference. So this is the defending force. They do have beach defences because they did have them and they were dug in places, so I've allowed them to give out at least 6 trenches. So that means 6 of the platoons can be dug in when they deploy on the table, and then we've also got our reserve as well. The British ones will act as the reserve company. I've also given the Japanese a +1d6 in close assaults because they have the bayonet attack. I was thinking about giving the defenders a +1d6 when they fire at a close assault, but given that the Indians were not as well trained as the other British soldiers that were on the Malayan Peninsula, I've decided not against that. Also, instead of having 3 patrol markers, these will only have 2 per company because of, again, their lack of training and just their unpreparedness against the Japanese. So let's crack on. We'll start up and we'll do the deployment phase and we'll go from there. Right, well, first we're going to start with the deployment. So we're going to do the defenders deployment. I put the company commanders out and the HQs and the artillery and things, but now we actually find out what they actually get as a deployment. So let's have a look. They've got a single one. This is the defenders. So that's a battery interdiction. So the Japanese are landing shells everywhere. So that's going to be for the first turn. The allies, the Indians, are going to have to roll to see if they are deployed or not. So we've got 5 and 6s are for ambush points, but we don't actually have any ambush points, so they're just going to turn into combat patrols. And the combat patrols are also the 2s to 4s, so they've got 2s and 4s there. They've got 5 2s and 4s plus these ambush points. As I say, we don't actually have any in this game. It's mostly infantry, so it is a case of 8 combat patrols, but because they only have 2 per company, they can only actually place 4 of them out. So that's all their combat patrols at least on the table. So that's not a great start for the defenders straight away. Well, I suppose it's about as best as they can get given the circumstances. So let's see what the attackers get. This is going to be a bit different. So we have ones are there's no deployments, but they are casualties on the defender. So we'll have to have a look at that, and that means that the defender removes a full infantry platoon for 2 and also 1 HQ order. So they're already on 2, so they've dropped down to 1. So that's so they're already causing casualties. Let's hope this isn't a walkover by the Japanese. 2 to 4 for them, for the attackers, is combat patrols. So they have their 2 companies commanders on. They have 2, 4, 5 combat patrols that they can place immediately, and then also the 5s and 6s mean that they can put on 2 on-board units as well. So what I'm going to do is I'll get those set up and we'll have a look at how everybody's deployed. So the first situation is the Japanese have got Company A's combat patrols all on. They've also brought on one of their units for Company A over here. Company B on that side, that's their area, have brought on 1 unit, one platoon, and also they've got their combat patrols as well. Meanwhile, the Indians have got a Company B combat patrol here and 1 here at the back, and then also a couple scattered around the large hill in the centre. What the Japanese are doing is using this feature as their consolidation point, so if they can capture that, they can then bring on their reserves from that point. So that's kind of why we've bunched them up a little bit in the centre to try to get that and clear that that landing area there, so they can pull on more as soon as they can and keep pushing forward. Right, well, we've got our basic first turn now, so we've done the deployment, so now we're rolling. One thing I forgot to mention is I took the casualty from the Indians Company A, because I just rolled for the dice and just that was the one that lost a platoon. So this is the Japanese orders first of all. So we've got 1s are no orders, but there's only 2 of those, so that just becomes, if it was 3 then they would have a hesitant company. They don't, so they're okay. 5s and 6s are HQ orders, so a 6, so that becomes 4, so they're now on their 4, and then the rest they get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 orders in total this turn. So I'll just put these to one side, so there's 5 and 6 of them. So let's see what the Indian defenders have got, and then we'll roll for initiative. So we've got, they have 2 HQ orders, 2 1s, so they don't have a hesitant company either, so that's good for them, and then they get 5 orders as well. So let's just give those out. And so their HQ orders have now gone back up to 4. They had dropped down because of that Japanese bombardment. So now we need to roll for our initiatives. So we've got the Japanese on 4, the Indians are also on, sorry, they're on 3, not 4. So the Japanese get a +4 on their dice, the Indians get a +3 on their dice. So we've got 4, 7, the Japanese have got 9, +4 is 13, so the Japanese have won the initiative, and they are quite obviously going to take the initiative, so that means they get that extra order, so that takes them up to 7, I think it is. My maths are right, yes, 7. The Japanese first turn has just seen them pushing up that beach as quick as they can. They've deployed a couple of units onto the combat patrols that they had, and they've shoved a couple more further forward. They're heading for that hill with the observer on, but they did do a rapid move, so they can't fire for that unit over there. And they've sent the other combat patrol off to the right flank to see if that can push through the jungle and get to that edge of the board. So we're trying to really spread out the attack across the entire front here, if they can. Well, the Doggerers are going to request artillery fire for their first action in their turn, and they're going to try and bring it down on these units here, so this section really, so they can hit that and the company commander if they can. They're going to go for regimental. I've not classed them as a second-rate battalion, I'm just classing them as a normal first-rate battalion, so they don't have any restrictions on calling in artillery, but it does cost them 2 orders, so let's just see what they get. A 5 on their artillery support is, that's not a map section, that's map section 3, not 4, so unfortunately they don't get anything, but they have used up those 2 orders. Well, that first turn has not gone very well for the Indians. Their first turn, should I say, defensive phase. They've tried to fire the artillery mission, it didn't work. They couldn't get through to headquarters, which is probably right. They tried to deploy one of their companies over here. Didn't happen. Sorry, one of their platoons over here didn't happen because they've been interdicted. They managed to deploy one here on the top of this hill at least, and this one over here, same again. They tried to deploy that, and that didn't happen either. The Japanese don't get any firing back or any reactions because they don't have any orders left over, and also there's not a great deal to fire at the moment. So we do go on to the regroup phase, but there isn't anything to do in that either at the moment. Nobody is currently suffering any shock or anything, so we'll just end the first turn and we move on to the second one. So I've just done the orders roll for turn 2, so we've got the Japanese have ended up with 5 orders, and they also got a couple more HQ orders, so that's taken them up to 6. The Indians only got 4 orders, but they also got 3 HQ orders, taking them also up to 6. So let's just roll for those. For initiative, both of these are the same, 6 versus 6, so let's just see how many we get. So the Japanese have got 4, and the Indians have got 8. So the Indians are going to take the initiative this turn, so they get an extra order. I'm giving them 5. So the first things first, the Indians are again calling in for artillery support. They're going to try and hit it on that Japanese section down there again. It's taking the company commander a 3. Oh, still, that's not map section 3, that's 4. So again, they don't get it, and they've lost 2 of their orders. Oh, that's very poor for them. Okay, our first Indian action is, after the failed artillery attempt, that is to they spring this unit into action here. They're no longer interdicted, so they can just deploy, and they have done, behind defences on the top of this hill, so they are firing at the Japanese in front of them. They are at close range, so they get an extra d6, but because they've moved, they get minus 2d6, so they're actually rolling 5d6. They don't need to spot because the Japanese are in the open, so they need 4, 5s and 6s. So they've only landed 2 hits on those Japanese. So the Japanese get 2 saving rolls. They're saving on a 4 or above for their morale. Let's have a look. They've saved both of those. So the Japanese will return fire. They haven't moved this turn, so they're starting with 6 dice because they've got 3 sections each firing with 2d6. But they are firing into trenches, but they are firing at close range. So they get a +1, but minus 2d6. So same again, 4, 5, 6 is a hit. Let's have a look. We've got 1, 2 hits this time. Same again. So they're defending on a 4 or above. So they take 1 shock. The Dogras have also brought on their section here, their platoon here, and another platoon here, just behind the crest of the hill. So they can't actually be seen at the moment by the Japanese. But these ones are on the edge of the jungle, so they're firing out to the Japanese here. So they've moved, but they're only rolling 4d6. The Japanese are in the open, so they can be spotted. So that's 2 hits on the Japanese. Let's see what their morale test is. 6 and a 1, so they've taken 1 shock. There's their shock. They're not going to fire back because they want to get up onto that hill as quick as possible, and I don't want to use up orders in their defensive turn. Right, the Japanese have piled up the hill and slammed straight into the forward observer. So they're doing a close combat on him. They are rolling 66 because that's 2 per section. They get their +1 because they're Japanese. However, they have got shock, so that takes 1 off. The Fu only gets 1 dice. 4 and above are hits. Any hits are automatic shock. So let's just see what happens. So the Japanese have taken 1 shock from the Fu, at least fighting back. But the Japanese have caused 1, 2, 3, 4 shock. So that is an automatic KIA for that forward observer. So he is off the board, and it's the first casualties of the game. And then on the Japanese left flank, we've got another close combat as these clear the beach, get up to the trenches at the top of that hill there. So they're going to attack they're attacking with 7d6. So let's get them rolled. Same again, all hits cause shock, so 4+. So that's 3 hits for the Japanese. So that goes 1, 2. They have 1 excess shock, so we've got to roll for that. 5 or a 6, and it's a KIA on one of these sections. No, they're still intact at least. But the Dogras fight back. They had shock on, so they're fighting back with 5d6. Let's see how many they cause. They have caused 2 hits on the Japanese. So the Japanese get 2 shock, first of all. However, the Japanese win because they've won by 3-2. So the Dogras are forced back 3d6, and the Japanese clear that position and take it. So that's 10, 11 inches back. Okay, so they're all the way back here. And the Japanese have taken that first trench line. Okay, start of turn 3, and I've just rolled the command dice for everyone. The Japanese got 6 HQ points, so they've gone back up to 6. They only got 3 company orders, so they're there, and they've also got a hesitant company as well. We'll see what that one is in a second. The Indians, on the other hand, only rolled a 2 1s, so they didn't get a hesitant company, but they did get 7 company orders, but no HQ orders. But they've already got 6 anyway. So let's find out which of the Japanese units is hesitant. 1 to 3, it's A on the left flank. 4 to 6, it's B on the right flank. So let's have a look. 1, so it's the left flank is hesitant. It's actually better for them because they're wanting to attack more with the right flank anyway. And then we have the initiative to do. So they both have a +6. So we just roll off, see who gets which. So let's see, the Indians have got a 9. The Japanese have also got a 9. Whoever won initiative last turn is the one who gets the initiative this turn. And that was the Indians, so the Indians get initiative again. Right, the first couple of actions the Dogger's doing are this platoon is firing up here at the Japanese platoon on the hill, so they're just firing at close range, so it's 6d6 +1. They have no shock or anything, but they've only hit with 1 dice, so that's only 1 4. So the Japanese save that on a 4 or above. No, so they're actually suppressed now. That's not good for them. And then the other Dogra section, the other Dogra platoon over here is also firing at the Japanese as well up here. So let's have a look. 4 5 6s to hit. That's 3 hits. The Japanese saves on those, and they have only saved 1 of them, so that is a 2 KIA over the suppress, so they instantly lose 1 section. And then the Indians have basically used the rest of their orders to deploy the Company C entirely as a reserves. So they've basically come on here. They've also brought on some more reserves over here from Company B. So they've now at least lined the entire table with a defence line. First Japanese action is to try to rally off shock on this section here, this platoon here. So they're doing, oh, they've not failed completely, so they have to retreat 3d6. That didn't go well, so that's 9, 10, 11 they fall back. So pretty much all of their gains, they're right back down on the beach again. So then they've deployed this platoon here. They are firing at the Indians in the trenches. 4 5 6s to hit. So we've hit on 2 there. The Indians are defending on 4 5 6. Let's have a look. So that's 6 1 defence. So they take 1 shock. And then we've got another close assault from this platoon here. They've charged in now, and they're firing at the attacking the Indians. So they're rolling 7d6 against the Indians. Let's have a look. 4 5s and 6s are hits. So that's 1 2 3 4 5. Blimey, that's a lot. So that is taking them 1 to 2 3, and then they are, so that was the first 2, so they are 3 over. So the first 2 result in them sorry, that's a full KIA for the first 2, so 1 is automatically off, 1 section, and then they have to roll for the other one, so a 5 or a 6 and another section is off. 6, so that's another section killed. Blimey, that's not good. They fight back. They're only fighting back on 5d6, so let's have a look, see what happens. So they've hit 2, so that's caused 2 shock on the attackers. The attackers have won, so they immediately retreat, and the Japanese have cleared that hill, at least at this point. Let's see how far back those Indians retreat. They fall back 8, 9 inches. The Japanese can rally, so they're going to, with 1d6, and they've passed, so they are now back down to 1 suppression. So let's just get those Indians moved, but that's another position cleared off. With that hill cleared, the Japanese have consolidated, and they brought on their company commander for Company C and also 2 combat patrols a bit further forward. They couldn't get any further forward because they are just 8 inches away from the Indians that are in the jungles over there. So that's as far forward as they could get, but they're now in a good position to actually start pushing through that centre of the board. Right, start of turn 4, and I've rolled up the orders. The Indians have got 8 orders because they got a 6, but they've already got 6 HQ orders, so that doesn't count. The Japanese got 1 extra HQ order, so that's taking them back up to 5. They got 6 company orders and then 2 ones, and the Indians also got 2 ones. So the Japanese have ended up with 6. So now we've got to roll off for the initiative. So let's see who gets. They're both on 6 HQ orders, so it's just a roll off. So let's have a look. 7 versus 7. Again, whoever got the initiative last turn in a tie gets it this turn. So that was the Indians. So they will again take the initiative. The first Indian order is to try to rally these guys here. So they're looking at 4, 5s and 6s to do so. They've rallied all 3, so they are no longer suppressed. So that means they can fire, but they can't really see the Japanese or any others, so they're basically stuck where they are, but at least they are rallied off. Okay, the next Indian order is for this platoon here to fire at the Japanese there. They are obscured, so they've got to be rolling the spotting dice. So let's have a look. They haven't spotted them, but they've hit them with 3 dice. So the Japanese are saving on 3s and above this time, so they've saved 2 of them, so they have taken 1 shock. The next Indian group firing, these ones here, they haven't moved this time, but I'm going to call it obscured because they're behind trenches. There's all this stuff going on here. They're in the jungle itself. So we're rolling a spotting dice. So let's have a look. They haven't spotted them, but they have hit them with 4 dice. So the Japanese are saving again on a 3 or above. Let's have a look. So we've saved 3 of them, but taken, oh no hits, so no effect to them there. Indians have also moved forward here as well. I'm not going to allow them to fire because they're pretty much in the dense jungle, but this group on the top here, this platoon is firing down into the flank of this Japanese unit down here. So, but again, they're obscured because they're looking through jungles and things, so they have spotted them anyway, but they've only landed 2 shots on them. So the Japanese morale saves, they're saved on a 4 or above, so they've saved both of those, so no effect. And then our final Indian order is this platoon here firing again at the guys on the top of the hill, then in the open, so there's no spotting dice needed, but they're looking at 4, 5s and 6s, so that's 4 hits on the Japanese, and the Japanese are saving on a 4, 5 or a 6, and they've saved all of them. The Japanese are not firing back because they want to hold on to their orders for their turn. They've only got a limited number, so that's why they're not returning fire this turn. Okay, over here we've got this Japanese section. What they've done is they've rallied off, this platoon, they've rallied off shock and they've charged down a hill into these Indians. Before they do that, they're going to fire, and also the Indians are going to reserve fire at them before they hit. So they're both used up an order. So we'll start with the Japanese. They are going to move. The Indians are in cover, so they need a spotting dice. So let's see, they haven't spotted them, but they have hit with 3 hits first of all. So the Indians are doing 3 saves for their for their morale first of all. They've saved 2, but not 1 of them, so they are already shocked. So then the Indians return fire as the Japanese pile down that hill. So they're firing with 6d6 but -1 because of the shock, and they are also spotting again because they are currently obscured. So they've spotted them, but they've only hit with 2 dice. So the Japanese do 2 saving rolls. Let's see, 4 and a 1, so that is 1 shock on the Japanese as they come into attack. So now we get the attack itself. The Japanese are starting with 6 dice. They get their +1 for the close assault, but then they lose 1 for their shock. The Indians, on the other hand, they start with 6 and they drop down to 5 because they are also shocked. So let's roll for these. Same again, there's no morale tests, it's just a hit on a 4 or above. So let's have a look. We have, the Japanese have caused 3 hits there. So the Indians need to beat 3 hits to win this. Let's have a look, and they have only scored 2 hits on the Japanese there. So let's have a look at what happens with that. The Indians have taken 1, 2, and then 1 KIA roll and a 5 or a 6. Reroll that, it was cocked. 4, no, they're not KO'd, but they have lost, so they will fall back 3d6. The Japanese took 2 hits, so they are suppressed, so there's no hit on them. But because they won, they get to rally, so 4 or above, Yes, they get to rally one off, so they're actually on 2 shock. The Indians then fall back, and they fall back 8 inches. So I'll just get those moved, and the Japanese are punching through those lines. And then we have more firing over here. This Japanese unit has rallied and they've got rid of their shock, so they move forward and they're firing at the Dogras here in the jungle. They are going to return fire. The Japanese have also moved forward this platoon as well off the beach, using up all of their orders. So we'll do the firing. They are obscured, so they need a spotting dice. They have spotted them and hit with 3 dice. So the Dogras are saving on 3 dice. They've been spotted, so they're only saving on a 4 or above, so they've taken 1 shock. So they're returning fire, and they're only firing with 5 dice because of that shock, but they also need a spotting dice. Let's see, so they haven't spotted them, and they've only landed 1 shot on the Japanese. The Japanese are saving on 3 or above. 1, they haven't taken it, so they have taken 1 shock as well. Just before turn 5, let's take a quick look at the situation at the moment. So the Japanese here on their extreme left haven't really made great headway, but they are kind of pushing forward. They did push the Indian unit out of those trenches, and they cleared that hill, but there's still pretty strong Indian resistance in this area. So this is probably a bit of a sideshow at the moment. The real event is happening here in the centre, where the Japanese have not only captured this ridge, but they've also consolidated on it as well, so they're now able to deploy from there. They push forward, they smashed into another Indian reserve unit and pushed them back to the river over there, so the way is kind of looking a little bit clearer now to get off that edge of that table, but there's still a little bit of defence here. We've got this platoon on this side, and there's also Indians in this trench over here. On this side, all very quiet. We've just got a Japanese combat patrol that is moving through this jungle. It was just using really to see if I could deploy anything there, but we've got quite a thin defence of the Dogras here as well. Just down this end we've also got, I'll just come into the lights, you've got this guy here as well. They're pretty smashed up, almost dead. So far we haven't had any foobar, but at the moment the Japanese, I think, have just got the upper edge just because they're able to push through in that centre. This is what they'll probably be looking to do in the next turn, is to smash through and hopefully open that centre up in the middle of the battalion and just push through from there. But let's see what happens. This command roll was pretty good for both the Japanese and the Dogras. The Dogras have got 9 orders, the Japanese have got 8. They're both on their maximum command orders anyway, so they're both on 6, so we just have to do a roll off. This is going to be probably quite important as to who gets the initiative here. The Japanese are going to be wanting to get it because they need to keep up that momentum, at least in the centre of the table. But let's see. So wow, that is close, God. So the Japanese have rolled a 12, the Dogras have rolled 11, and the Japanese, as I said, are going to take that initiative, so they get the extra order for that. We've got another Japanese bayonet attack piling in here. This unit wanted to rally and then charge, but they couldn't. They failed the rally roll, so they could only rally or charge. So they've actually, because they were hesitant, they've dropped down to 1 shock instead. So that's what they did. Then the next unit over here, this platoon, are going to fire at the Indians, then attack them. The Indians will return fire with one of their orders. So let's have a look at the firing first of all. 4, 5, 6s for the Japanese to hit. That's 2 hits. And I didn't do my spotting dice. Let's have a look. They have spotted them. So the Indians are defending on 4, 5, 6. So that's 2 passes. So that's good for them. They return fire at the Japanese as they're coming in. Same again, they need that spotting dice. So they have spotted them, and they've landed 2 hits on the Japanese. So that's 2 saves on the Japanese. So let's have a look what they get. They've passed 1 and failed 1, so they have taken 1 shock. So that's their 1 shock. So then we go on to the actual attack itself. The Japanese are rolling 7d6 because they've got that extra hit, but they're minusing 1 because of that shock, so they're down to 6d6. So again, 4, 5, 6s are hits. Let's have a look. We've got just 1 for the Japanese here. This may not go their way. The Indians are unshocked or anything, so they're just rolling their dice. So 4, 5, 6, they've caused 3 shock on the Japanese. So that takes them to 1, 2, 1 over is a KIA roll. Let's do that. 5 or a 6, and 1 section is killed. Yes, a section is killed. They put up a stiff defence at least. And then they have lost, so they fall back. Those Indians have taken 1 shock. So let's see how far back the Japanese go. They go 6 inches back. So they're just here with this unit here, taking their suppression and orders with them. So, given that, let me just put that shock on that Indian unit. So we've got another Japanese unit. These are now going to try and move and fire. So they are going to fire first before they move in and attack again. So these are rolling on 4d6 first of all. Then we'll see how far they actually move. So they have spotted them and they've hit with 2 dice. So the Dogras are defending with 2 dice on a 4 or above. They failed 1, they passed 1, so they are now hesitant. So now let's see, they can't return fire because they've already used up their order, unless they wanted to use a commander order, but that would be expensive. They're just going to stand. And so let's see how far the Japanese move. 7 inches, which will bring them within an inch of them, which is perfect for their close assault that they need. So they actually get down there. Let's see if they can stand against this or not this time. So the Japanese are attacking with 7d6 this time because they've got that +1 in bayonets. So 4, 5, 6s. They've hit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'll just work that out in a second. The Dogras are hesitant, so they are rolling. They've got a -1 on theirs, so they've hit 3 on those Japanese. So at least they've suppressed the Japanese. The Dogras have taken 1 hit, but then 2 and 2 is 2 KIAs, so that's 2 of their sections off. That also means that they now have lost 5 sections, so they are going to have a crisis of command, and they take a foobar marker as well for that. That's the first out of 3. They will then fall back 3d6. Let's roll, see how far away they run. They have run back 10 inches, so they're just still on the board, but they are fallen back. The Japanese then get to rally with 1d6, 4, so they have rallied, so that's put them back down to 2, so they're no longer suppressed, but they are hesitant. So they've absolutely smashed through them in that centre there. This is not looking good for the Dogra defence. So the Indians have taken their first foobar, having lost 5 sections at this point, including their foo. So they roll 1 dice. So we've got a 3. The Japanese now have to match this. If they match this on the first dice, they lose 2 from their command orders. If they match it on their second dice, they lose 1 from their command orders. So let's see, the first roll is a 5, no. The second roll is a 4, no. So they don't lose any command orders at least. Okay, one of the Japanese sections has moved forward here, and these are reacting fire to it, so they're going to use an order. 4, 5 or a 6, and they can. No, they can't, so they've wasted an order basically. And then over here on the flank, on the left flank, the Japanese, they tried to rally but they couldn't, so they've moved forward and they are firing at the Indians there. They get +1 because they're close range, they're -2 because they moved, and -1 because they have a shock. But they are firing at an obscured enemy. They haven't spotted them, but they landed 2 shots on them. So let's see what happens to them. They've saved 1 and they failed 1, so that makes them hesitant. So they're returning fire, so they have a spotting dice. They are firing with 5d6 because they have that shock. Let's just see what happens. They've spotted the Japanese and they've hit with 2, so the Japanese are saving on a 4 or above. They've saved both of them, so no effect there. Right, we've got quite a bit happening in this turn. The 2 Dogra units at the back have rallied. They've rallied off some shock. The Dogra unit there on the right-hand flank has moved through the jungle to try to get into a position to stop this Japanese advance in the centre. These guys have left their trenches to come here, and they're going to fire at the HQ here, the company HQ. However, they have issued a withdraw order, and they've moved back away from danger. And then we've also got the Dogra unit up here on this hill. They're going to be firing down into the Japanese, and there's some more firing on the left flank as well. So we'll just sort out this firing here and move on to the left flank and see what happens. I'm just currently holding on to see what happens here before I issue any further Japanese orders. So we're starting with the first Dogras here. They're just firing 4d6 because they moved. And they're not at close range or anything, so 6 is a hit, and they can see them. The Japanese are literally saving on a 3 or above because they're a company commander. 5, so no effect. I didn't think that would have much effect. Then we've got the firing in the jungle. They're going to fire at this suppressed unit already to try to cause casualties if they can. And also not to draw hits back, so they've got to spot them. So they have spotted them and hit with 3 dice. So the Japanese are saving on 3s, so they need 4 or above, and they've saved 2 but not 1, so that is a KIA roll. 5 or a 6 and they're taken out. No, they're still on the board, so they're doing okay so far. So we've got the Japanese over here. Well, the Dogras are firing at the Japanese. They're firing with 6 dice, -1 because of the they're hesitant, but they get a +1 because they're close range, less than 6 inch. But they are spotting because the Japanese are in jungle. So let's have a look. They've spotted them, and they've hit with 3 dice. So the Japanese are saving on a 4, 5 or a 6. Let's have a look. They haven't saved a single one. So that's 1, 2, and then 1 over. So 5 or a 6 is a KIA. No, they've survived it, but they are suppressed. So they can't actually return fire. So what we're going to do now is the Indians are going to issue, I think they thought they had one last order. Oh, it doesn't look like they had. I thought they had one more order. They were going to issue that to this unit to move in, but I've issued all the other orders elsewhere. So unfortunately they can't attack as they thought they were going to. That said, the Japanese have got one more order left. Actually, the Indians can, because they can use one of their command orders. So they're going to do that to move this unit in, or try to move this unit into the suppressed ones. So let's see how far they get. First of all, 8 inches, and yes, they are in contact with them. So they've actually made it. I'm not going to allow them to fire just because it's such thick jungle there, but they have come through and they've actually hit the Japanese. So we're going to have a fight here. The Japanese are not charging, so I'm not going to give them that bonus of the bayonet charge. So the Indians have hit 2, so that's going to be at least 1 KIA on the Japanese anyway. And then the Japanese fighting back, they are suppressed, so that takes them down to 2d6 down, so they're fighting with 4. And they've caused 3 hits. So the Dogras have actually taken 3 shock, so that suppressed them. The Japanese, though, have got that KIA roll. No, they've taken an automatic KIA. But the Dogras have actually lost more, so they will fall back 3d6 inches. So they fall back 7 inches, so pretty much where they came from. So they're back here somewhere. And the Japanese then get to rally. So let's see if that works. That wasn't a great attack, was it? So the 3, they don't rally, but they have lost another unit. So 1 more and they will get their first foo bar. Okay, start of turn 6, and the Dogras have got 1 extra HQ, so that takes them back up to 6. The Japanese got 2, but they were already on 6. So they've got 7 orders. The Indians have got 6. So we've got to do our roll off. And again, they're both tied because they're both on 6 HQ orders. So let's see. So the Dogras have got 8. The Japanese have got 4. So the Dogras are going to take the initiative again. Okay, our first move for the Indians has been to, again, advance this unit against the company command. But they also issued an order to withdraw, so they have done. So these have moved forward, but they are firing at them. So they need 4, 5, 6s, and they've hit with 1. The Japanese are defending on a 3 or above a 2, so they've actually taken 1 shock. which means they don't hold shock, so they have taken a KIA roll. So let's have a look. 5 or a 6 and they've taken out. 6, yes, they've been taken out. So when you lose a company command, not only is that automatically a crisis of command, so we've got to do that first of all. So the Japanese have rolled a 2. The first Indian roll is a 1. Their second roll is a 3. So they haven't done anything, but it has also caused a foobar on the Japanese, because that is their 4th section that they've lost now. So they've now taken a foobar. So they now have another crisis of command roll. So let's do that again. So the Japanese first one is a 1. The first Indian roll is a 3. Second Indian roll is a 5. So they haven't affected the HQ at all, but they have at least taken out a company commander. Right, we've got a lot of firing going on here in the centre, so I've given out all the orders because there's not much movement. This unit, apart from that, has moved here. They've moved forward and they're going to fire at the Japanese here. They're going to need a spotting dice to see if they can see them. So we'll do that first of all. -2 for moving. So they're firing with 4 dice. So they've only hit with 2 and they have spotted. So the Japanese are saving 2 on a 4 or above. Let's have a look. They've saved them both, 6 and a 6. No issues. These ones over here have rallied off their shock. They too are going to fire. Now they're not in the jungle anymore, so they don't need that spotting dice. They've got no shock, so they're just firing with 66. 4+ to hit. That's only 2 hits out of those. So the Japanese, their morale test is a 3 and a 5. So they have failed one, but passed one. So they're down to 2 shock. Then we've got the Dogras over here. They are now firing again at those who are suppressed. And again, they need to spot them. So we're looking at 66 with a spotting dice. Let's have a look. 6, they have spotted them, and but they've only landed 2 shots on the Japanese. So the Japanese are doing 2 rolls on a 4 or above. So 4, they've saved 1. 5, they've saved both of them. And then our final bit of shooting is just this section down here. These are firing at the Japanese there. They're literally rolling 1 dice. And that's it. So 4, 5 or a 6 is a hit. It's a hit. The Japanese are saving on 4, 5 or a 6. 3, no, they haven't saved it, so that's actually suppressed them. So I thought that was going to be poor, but they've actually managed to suppress them. So we've got our final bit of firing. We've got the Dogras over here firing at the Japanese in the jungle. So 6, they've spotted them, but only landed 2 hits on them. So let's just roll those, see what they get. And they're saving on a 4 or above. They've saved 1, not passed 1. So 1 is a KIA roll. 5 or a 6 and they're KIA'd. Yeah, that's another Japanese section off. Oh, they're slowly dripping away now. They've lost 5. And the Dogras have also lost 5 at this point. Okay, we've got a really confused jungle melee here. What's happened is the Japanese have deployed this section here, this platoon here. They are going to fire at this section, this platoon here before this platoon has rallied and then moved in. I've kind of done some of the basic moves here first of all, just to get it out of the way. These guys have rallied. They couldn't get they failed the rally test, so they just dropped their shock from suppressed down to 2. These rapid moved forward here, so they're now pushing in, so they can't fire. So I'm going to start with these, and then we're going to do this bayonet attack as well. So they're firing in the open. 4, 5, 6 is a hit. That's 3 hits on those Dogras. Let's see what their defense is. So reroll dice cocked. So they've saved 1 and they've failed 1. So they've taken 1 shock automatically. Then we've got the Japanese are fighting, shooting first of all before they attack. So we're starting with just 1 hit on the Dogras. So we'll roll that. 4, they've saved it anyway. The Dogras are using a command HQ to return fire as the Japanese come in, but they're now suffering from shock, so they're down to 5 dice. So let's see what happens. They've hit on 1. And what happens to the Japanese? They're saving on a 4, 5 or 6. No, they don't save, so they are actually hesitant, so they are stuck where they started their attack. So they're back here somewhere instead of actually being able to close in and try to punch a hole in there, but they are certainly closing in around here. Alright, then on the flanks we've got this Japanese platoon is charging in against the Dogras here, who have already got 2 shock. They're firing first, so let's see what happens. They haven't spotted them, but they have landed 3 shots. So the Dogras are saving on 3 or aboves. Let's have a look. They've saved 2, failed 1, so that has actually suppressed them. They were going to fire back, so they can't fire back because they're suppressed. So they're just going to have to take the brunt of this Japanese assault now. So we've got they've got 7 dice against the Dogras. They're starting with 4 because they're suppressed. And that's it. So the Japanese 4, 5, 6 is a hit, so that's 4 hits. So again, so that's 2 KIAs because they're already suppressed. We'll have a look at this in a second. They fight back and they've hit 1, so they've caused 1 shock on the Japanese, but they have lost 2 sections. So let's just see how many we're on now. I think that takes them up to 7 now. Yeah, they're on 7. Another one, they will get the second foobar. The Japanese have won here, so they get to rally, and the Dogras have to retreat. So let's see what we got. They've rallied, so they can rally that shock straight off. And then the Dogras have retreated. 3d6. They fall back 6 inches. Right, let's take another situation report. So on the right flank, very quiet. Not much is happening. The combat patrol hasn't moved. The Dogras did destroy the commanders here. There's another one here on the beach still, which is pretty much in the open. They'll probably turn towards that. However, in the centre here, the Japanese have been smashing their way through this jungle clearing here down to the river, and they keep pushing back those Dogra defenders right on the very edge of the table now. They just need to get off that table, and they have won this game. So that's what they're going to be trying to do this turn. Over here, though, also on the flank, the left flank, the Japanese are making great gains. Actually, they stood up against the Dogra close assault, but then also have managed to push back these guys here, and again they are suppressed and shattered. So at the moment it's looking like they've got a couple of chances of actually getting off the board next turn if they play their cards right. So let's find out what happens in turn 7. Okay, we've got our rolls here. So both have actually taken 6 orders. The Dogras had 5 HQ points, so they've gone up to 6. The Japanese already had 6, so they basically combined theirs, and both of them lost out a couple with their 1s. So let's do the roll off for the initiative. It's basically exactly the same, so there's whoever gets the highest. And the Dogras are on 7, the Japanese are on 10, sorry, so the Japanese are going to take initiative, of course, and it starts with them. Okay, so our first order over here is the Japanese are going to assault into the Dogras here, so they're going to fire first of all. So we need to see if we hit 4, 5, 6s. So yeah, that's 3 hits on those Dogras. Let's see how many they save. They've saved 2 but lost 1, so they are now hesitant. They return fire because they're going to use an order. So let's see how many they hit as the Japanese come in. None. Amazing. Then we go on to the actual assault itself. So the Dogras are starting with 6, 7 because they have their bayonets all sharpened. So 5s and 6s, 4, 5, 6s should I say. So that's 3 misses, 4 hits on those Dogras. So let's see. And then the Dogras themselves fight back, and they are fighting back with 5d6 because they've got shock. So let's see how many they hit. They hit with 3, so they actually lose, but they cause a suppression on the Japanese who move in. They take 4 hits themselves, so 1 hit is absorbed and takes them to a suppressed, and then they have 1 KIA roll and then also 1 section off, so that is going to be another foobar marker for the Allies. Let's see if this KIA roll works or not. 1, no it doesn't. But they have lost, they are going to have to retreat. 3d6, they fall back 8, 9 inches, they're on the edge. So that's another 2 losses for them. So we're going to have to do a command roll, plus then a crisis of command roll, plus then they also have their losses as well, their their foobar marker, another foobar marker. So let's just do the command, crisis of command. So first of all, they've got a 5, first Japanese roll, a 3, second Japanese roll, a 2. So they don't meet it, so they just take another foobar marker, so that's the second now for them of 3. And they've lost 2, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think 8 and 9 at the moment. They're on. No, it's more than that. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 in fact. So 2 more sections lost and they will lose anyway. So now the Japanese, these ones over here are hesitant. So they're going to roll a rally roll to see if they can rally and then hopefully try and move off the table and win the game. But let's see. This is the first one. 6, they've rallied. So that brings them down to 1 shock. They are then going to do a rapid move. So it's 3d6 and you take the top 2 scores. Don't know if they'll reach the edge of the table where they are. They are 10 inches away. Let's just see. You take the top 2 scores. That's 11. That takes them 11 inches off that table edge and completes the game. So I'm not going to play the rest of this turn because the Japanese have split the Dogra's brigade. They've cut a hole right through the centre. If they hadn't done it, this platoon over here would have done, and then these guys would have recovered and gone back and forth with the Dogra's on the beach. So although the Dogra's got behind, the Japanese have won and they've taken Kota Bharu, or at least the beach at Kota Bharu. So that's it, the end of the game. The Japanese have won. They've managed to push the Dogra's back. The defence line broke in the centre where the Japanese consolidated and were able to push through the jungles here to be able to get off the edge of the table here. And as I say, if that unit hadn't have done it, this unit over here probably would have done anyway, or at least wiped out another Dogra unit, probably causing even more foobar and ending the game either way. The Dogras were able to push forward here onto the beach, but to no avail really. I mean, they killed a command stand, but not much else. This area of the battlefield was very quiet. I did push forward this combat patrol here for the Japanese to try to get somebody close to the edge, but in the end it didn't really matter. We got a couple of commander units on the beach here still, and also this unit had fallen back as well. They failed a rally test earlier in the game and fell back. So we got a quite heavy presence of Japanese on the left flank, along with, like I say, that real hammer blow in this centre here, which just managed to push right through that Dogra defence. Well, thank you for watching. That was another great game of O Group. Lasted 8 turns that time. The Japanese managed to push it through. As I say, this is going to be, I think this is probably going to be part 1 of a occasional series of the Malaya campaign, so keep a lookout for the next one. It might be the battle on the ledge, just north of the top end of Malaya. We'll see. I'll have a look and I'll work out which is my next game. But if you've enjoyed this, please do subscribe. There are more O Group videos on the channel. There is also many more AARs for Chain of Command and I Ain't Been Shot Mum and Rapid Fire and all kinds of things. So do check those out. If you haven't already, please do subscribe. And also check out my blog, check me out on Twitter, all that kind of thing. And hit that like button and leave me a comment. So, thank you once again for watching and I hope you've enjoyed it.